Hey man, can you stop playing? My in-laws are coming, and I need to look like responsible adults.
In-laws? Fool! Don't you know I'm an outlaw? I don't give a fuck who comes here. I'm gonna make this guide for our Mo Squad family.
Dude, it's my in-laws, man, come on. Take your legendaries, conduits, talents, and openers.
And more!
Yeah, and more. Come on, man, just take somewhere else.
Flame.
Yeah.
You wanna know the difference between in-laws and outlaws?
No.
Outlaws are wanted. They're wanted in WoW too!
You know what else is wanted in WoW? Add-ons, and the CurseForge client is perfect just for that. It's the old Twitch app, but now working independently and with many improvements and quality of life changes. Easy to install, easy to find add-ons, easy one-button update for all of them, and the CurseForge client devs are super active with the updates, bug fixes, new features, and man have they been pumping patches lately. Thanks to the CurseForge client and the devs for making our UIs better while supporting add-on creators, and as always for sponsoring this video. If you want the add-ons we use, just click the link in the description. It does help us tremendously if you do. First Bro brings you Ghostly Strike for single target as the best option out of the three. It adds yet another button to press, but very worth it due to its 10% damage buff to all your abilities for 10 seconds. In AoE, however, Ghostly Strike will not add to your Blade Flurry, so the best option here is Quick Draw, a passive that will enable your opportunity procs to have your pistol shot deal 50% more damage and generate an extra combo point. And you will soon realize that these procs happen quite often. An argument can be made for Weapon Master 2, in AoE that is, but only if you pair it up with the triple threat conduit, and since this is the safe/beginner version of this guide, stick to Quick Draw for all your AoE necessities. Second row is entirely optional and it usually boils down to what you prefer. The best all-rounder here remains Acrobatic Strikes, as it increases the range of your melee attacks by 3 yards, allowing you some very needed space to maneuver around mechanics, frontals, and so on. Retractable Hook gets your grappling hook to be only 30 seconds on cooldown, which sure, it will increase your mobility since you have no shadow step as outlaw, and Hit and Run will permanently increase your movement speed by 15%. Very useful indeed, but nothing really beats Acrobatic Strikes, so stick to it. Next up, Mark for that is usually the strongest pick on this bro. It will instantly grant you 5 combo points, and after the target you marked dies, the cooldown for this resets, making it pretty goddamn useful when dealing with packs of mobs or ad waves. Even if you don't super min-max your snipes or just use it for single target, it's still very powerful and helps with easier slice and dice setup as well. As a more passive alternative, if you don't like using an extra button with Mark for that, you can go for Deeper Stratagem. If you played Rogue before, you already know that this will increase your combo points from 5 to 6, and all the finishers that come along with it will do 5% increased damage. I mean, this apart from the bigger damage already in place when consuming 6 combo points. You can also sim this bro to see how big the differences will be for your character. Really recommend simming here. On the survivability row, we all know Flame's favorite, yep, the wall hack for all frontal lovers, Cheat That. What does it do? Simple. You don't notice you're taking to the face a fatal frontal or standing in too much bad? This will save you from certain death and get you back to 7% of your max HP, and you will take 85% reduced damage for 3 seconds after that. Now, if you really know your mechanics and can easily predict incoming problems, then elusiveness might just be your best friend, as this will enable your feint to also reduce direct damage by 30% for 5 seconds, on top of the existing AoE reduction component. Level 40 row brings you Prey on the Weak for raids, as although bosses and certain enemies cannot be stunned, the ones that can will take 10% increased damage from everyone, so it's still pretty useful. Same argument can be applied in dungeons too, but you tend to get more value from dirty tricks, as this talent will allow you to use your cheap shots, saps, and most importantly, your gouge free of cost. No energy. And we all know how important disrupting certain mobs can be, right? So, prey on the weak in raids, dirty tricks in dungeons, but don't forget to make use of that gouge, okay? Next up should have been the Talon Row, where all Outlaw Rogues burst into happiness. Why? Dreadblades are back for some burst damage.
Yeah, but they do shit damage when compared to Alacrity.
Okay, less RNG from Roll the Bones with loaded dice, hahaha!
No, it's still way behind Alacrity in terms of performance.
So you mean with all these in our talent tree, we're still taking Alacrity like in BFA and Legion?
Yep.
Well, there you have it, man. Both raids and dungeons pick Alacrity, as this, as always, will make your finishers build up a very nice stack in haste buff. We'll talk more about haste in a second. Alright, last pro, baby! Blade Rush is the best all-arounder here. On a 45-second cooldown, this charges you to your target, dealing a good chunk of damage to it, and 60% of that is also done to targets around it, without any target cap. It's great for both dungeons and raids. Killing Spree can be a good alternative for Mythic Plus Burst or when paired with the Master Assassin Legendary, especially if you miss that all-combat rogue playstyle. But it is a bit more tricky to control, as it may or may not place you in the frontal or something, but to be safe, stick to Blade Rush for all content and you'll be fine. For stats on your Outlaw Rogue, the first order of business is for you to sim yourself, because stat priorities will differ from player to player depending on gear, covenants, and so on. As a general though, agility will be the best for obvious reasons, so high item level gear is a priority. Granted, it's not rings or something without agility. After this, versatility and crit are the main secondaries you want to start stacking. We all know that Versa simply increases the damage you do and reduces the damage you take, but it also boosts trinket damage, covenant abilities damage, and so on. Crit is similarly powerful in any situation. Next up, haste should follow. Haste provides strong benefits for Outlaw. I mean, apart from energy regen and generally more energy through the combat potency passive, it also increases your attack speed, which for Outlaw is a big plus, especially for the main Gosh procs. The value of haste varies depending on how much you have already. If you are just starting out, haste can potentially be the best stat. With current Castle Nathria gear levels, it is often slightly behind versatility and crit though. This is followed up by Mastery, simming generally lower than the other stats. Mastery for Outlaw is a bit of a special beast, since it determines the damage of your main Gosh attacks that proc from main hand attacks. This does not scale as well as the rest at the moment. Keeping in mind the stat priorities or whatever you simmed yourself, your main weapon should always be enchanted with Celestial Guidance for a nice chunk of agility procs, while the other weapon can be either Lightless Force for AoE or Sinful Revelation for single target. Gems and rings enchants are again something you pick depending on what you simmed, but if you're going to take note of the general stat weights, Tenet of Versatility for your rings and Versatile Jewel Cluster for your sockets. Your boots need to have the Eternal Agility for some of that extra main stat, and your chest should be enchanted with Eternal Stats. A nice little boost to all of them, right? And for a nudge on your survivability, enchant your cloak with Fortified Leech, because having such value on auto attacks really delivers on that leech. For potions and flasks, well, it's pretty obvious you always want to stack on Spectral Flask of Power for that juicy agility, while pairing it up with Potion of Spectral Agility for even more agility. Do I say agility a lot? I bet I do. For your weapons, you can make use of Shaded Sharpening Stones or Shaded Weight Stones if you don't hold the necessary funds. In terms of culinary preferences, Feast is generally the best one. Granted, you have the gold for it or someone is generous enough to provide. If not, then Steak a la Mode is a great alternative for versatility gains, or Tenebrous Crown Roast Aspic for more haste. One great thing about rogues in Shadowlands is that all the covenants are very close to each other in terms of numbers, as opposed to other classes. So you can pick really whatever you want and do absolutely fine. For this guide, we will talk about a good starting covenant, the Kyrian. First off, damage-wise, you get Echoing Reprimand, a very potent upfront damaging ability that comes with a minigame to further increase its damage. I will explain how the minigame works, but do keep in mind that missing it or not always playing around it isn't that much of an issue. So, after hitting Echoing Reprimand, it will mark your second, third, or fourth combo point with an overcharged combo point. You will easily spot it as its color with this anima bluish tint. After this, you have 45 seconds to generate combo points at exactly that spot. And if you do, when you hit a damage dealing finisher, it will act as if 7 combo points were used, meaning more damage for you. The Covenant signature ability is Summon Steward, which will have you assisted by one of those cute owl buff boys to enable some cool things like changing talents, repairing, but the real star of this is Phial of Serenity, a potion to heal you for 20% of your max HP while also cleansing all diseases, poisons, bleeds, and curses on you. And since you get a lot of these in Shadowlands, you understand why it's so valuable. Now, if you're just starting out, Pelagos will be a good option as your main soulbind, mainly due to the beneficial interaction between combat meditation and Echoing Reprimand. I mean, you get a good chunk of mastery for 10 seconds and little small orbs fall out of your target. Walking through those will extend the duration of the buff by 3 seconds each. This is mainly why we haven't touched too much on mastery in the stats department. At high renown, Nightfay offers a very strong option in Korain due to Wild Hunt tactics. This is indeed situational as you deal 10% more damage to targets that are above 75% HP, and once they drop below that, the buff goes away. But nevertheless, going from heroic and up or keys 15 plus, that 75% up threshold will be there for more of the fight's total time. As of patch 9.0.5 release, it is also not uncommon for Outlaw Rogues to go for the Necrolord Covenant, as the freshly buffed Serrated Bone Spike instant damage is translated into AoE with Blade Flurry for some strong AoE burst. So if Mythic Plus is your only jam, then the Necros can net you a very good advantage. Now, your potency conduits are quite important and you will need to start looking out for them. One of which is Count the Odds, an absolute necessity for Outlaw Rogues, because with this, your Ambush, Slaughter, and Dispatch have a 15% chance to grant you a combat enhancement buff you don't already have from Roll the Bones, and the duration and chance are tripled if these are casted from stealth. So yay ambush, then vanish and ambush again, right? Another great conduit is Sleight of Hand, which will enable your Roll the Bones a 10% increased chance of granting additional matches, making your roll a bit less RNG. For Finesse conduits, Quick Decisions is very useful because it will reduce your grappling hook's cooldown by 10% and it will also increase its range. Or you can go with Fade to Nothing, a more defensive conduit that provides a 10% absorb of your maximum health in damage when you enter stealth. It gets reduced by 1% each second you are outside of stealth. The proper endurance conduits are first and foremost Recuperator, which will make your Slice and Dice heal you for up to 18% for max HP in over 30 seconds, or Numble Fingers, which is great because it will reduce the energy cost for your Feint and Crimson Vial. Alright, let's check out some trinkets. For both single target and multi-target, we sort of have the best two seeming trinkets. First one being Dreadfire Vessel, which currently seems the highest in Castle Nathria, and it drops from the compassionate lord of the Venti himself, Sardonatrius. Second option would be Phial of Putrefaction, a short shot trinket that will have you apply a very nice dot on your target, stacking up 3 times. Needless to say, its damage is directly impacted by versatility, and you can get this one from Plaguefall. These are the best, but if you're not that lucky, especially on the Nathrius, you can fish out the Skulker's Wing from Shriekwing, a very potent trinket in single target, and it's relatively easy to get since it is the first boss of the raid. Even the meme trinket of Shadowlands, Inscrutable Quantum Device, is very powerful in the hands of your outlaw, and this drops from the other side. There is also a weak aura in the description for this trinket to let you approximately know what stat you will receive. Pretty good. Legendaries, Craft Celerity. That's it. End of guide. Get the fuck out. What? Shut up. Listen, Celerity is kind of the best all-rounder legendary for Outlaw in both raiding and dungeons. Why? Because when using Adrenaline Rush, your main damage cooldown, all your damage is increased by 8%, and besides this, your Slice and Dice now has a chance to proc you a 3-second Adrenaline Rush. What more do you want? Well, Mark of the Master Assassin is also great, especially in dungeons and paired up with Killing Spree. This Lego will net you 100% crit chance for 4 seconds after leaving stealth, and since you will make use of Vanish way more often than the other rogue specs, due to its cooldown being reduced by the Restless Blades passive, the value of this can be really high. Our recommendation will still be Celerity. It does great everywhere. Okay, let's check out a basic opener for your Outlaw Rogue in single target, taking into account the talent build discussed and having the Count the Odds conduit. This will be very basic, and openers do change slightly depending on what buffs you get from Roll the Bones. So, get into stealth and make sure to cast Roll the Bones at about 1 or 2 seconds before the pull. If you pick Mark for that, also make sure to get up Slice and Dice before the pull with it. Then you open on your target with Ambush and Adrenaline Rush and any unused trinket all at the same time. Then pop Vanish and then cast Ambush again. After this, use Blade Rush, Ghostly Strike, and then pop your Echoing Reprimand or whatever Covenant ability you have. If you are at max combo points here, do not pop Echoing Reprimand, but rather Slice and Dice and then Echoing Reprimand. If you're not capped, then Sinister Strike until you reach 6 combo points. After this, pop your Slice and Dice. Use Sinister Strike or Pistol Shot procs to reach 6 combo points again, and once you do, use Between the Eyes. From there on, the main idea for you is to maintain your Roll the Bones, your Slice and Dice, Ghostly Strike, and Between the Eyes on your target. If those are always up, then use your Sinister Strike and Pistol Shot procs to generate combo points to dump them into dispatches. As for the amount of combo points, the idea is to always finish as high as possible without wasting guaranteed combo points. You can min-max this by paying attention to dynamic buffs like Broadside or Opportunity if you are using Quick Draw, the talent. Then shift your threshold. However, you will also be fine if you go for a simplified 5+ roll. Always remember to only use Blade Rush when low on energy. The damage is good, but its real value comes from the boost of energy it provides. For AoE, it's pretty much the same, but you do have to make use of Blade Flurry pretty early on. So, once again, you enter Stealth, cast Roll the Bones, then Ambush, Adrenaline Rush, and Unused Trinket all at the same time. After this, you Blade Flurry, then Vanish and Ambush again. Pop your Slice and Dice, then Echoing Reprimand, and Sinister Strike until 6 combo points. Then use Between the Eyes on your priority target, mark for that, then Dispatch, then Blade Rush. After this, keep an eye out for your Blade Flurries, Slice and Dice, and Roll the Bones, and make sure they're always up. Then Sinister Strike until you get 5 to 6 combo points, and finish with Dispatch. Blade Flurry is really the key for AoE damage, and it is what makes Outlaw unique. It allows you to do AoE while continuing more or less with the single target rotation that you are used to. Blade Flurry's cooldown is reduced by finishers, so you can maintain almost 100% uptime of it in multi-target situations. In terms of Roll the Bones, roll them on cooldown when you have only one buff. If that buff is True Bearing or Broadside, then keep it, don't roll. Don't refresh your Roll the Bones when you have 2 buffs, unless those 2 buffs are Grand Melee and Buried Treasure, which are kind of the worst out of what you could get. However, if you have one strong buff like Skull and Bones or Broadside and one bad buff like Buried Treasure, then keep them, don't be in a hurry to reroll. You have to trust your cooldowns as an Outlaw and use everything once it's ready, because Outlaw really has the biggest benefits in terms of cooldown reductions out of all specs. This is due to the passive Restless Blades and the Roll the Bones buff True Bearing. Restless Blades reduce the remaining cooldown of basically all your important abilities by 1 second per combo point spent, and True Bearing adds an additional second to this reduction. Once you get used to it, you will realize that all your major abilities come back really fast, so don't hold too much on them. There is a lot more to Outlaw, and I did try to keep it as simple as possible so you can get going, but if you want to further your knowledge and expertise on the spec, be sure to visit the Ravenhall Discord, where top outlaws and theory crafters are more than willing to help you out. One of which is Missler, one of the coolest theory crafters we've ever met and have the pleasure to work with all the time. He helped on fact-checking the guide and added some very vital information too. You can check out his Outlaw Rogue guide on Wowhead, or even hit him up on his Twitter or Twitch. All the links are in the description. He's just the type of guy you want to have a beer with. Now, you know all this would not be possible without the support from you, dear Patreon. We put a lot of effort on making these guides, from research to playtesting and fact-checking, not to mention the production, and apart from these 2 class guides per week, we also have the Mocast podcast and the TLF show. You know, the Tier List Fridays. So yeah, that's what you're supporting. If you're interested in joining the Patreon team, check the link in the description. I bow to you for watching until this point, and see you soon again.
I've been loving it then, I still love it now. Still, I play WoW. Still, I play WoW. Getting better every day, let me show you how. Cause still, I play WoW. Still, I play WoW. It's getting harder to stay, but at the end of the day, it's a guilty pleasure, so just log in and play. Whether it's classical retail, I'ma do a /bow. Still, I play WoW.